Welcome to the channel, Pain of the Patoot here with another Gunsmith video. This one's going to be a little different because I'm not going to be going over a particular part, but I'm hoping to give you some knowledge that you can complete a lot of these on your own. There's lots of great videos out there, but often the videos concentrate on certain parts, and you may not have access to those particular parts. For whatever reason, you don't have your traders unlocked to a sufficient level. You can't ever buy them because they keep selling out, whatever. But often there's multiple ways to complete a gunsmith task. Now, this case, part 14 for the 416, it specifies a lot of the parts that you have to use, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to wait until you have them. But if I jump over here to part 13, it talks about the RSAS, but it doesn't really specify any particular parts. Note, sometimes these little pictures here actually are of help because they show you what you can put on, but don't count on them. That's only useful for the newer tasks. The older tasks are so out of date that you can't use the picture, which is unfortunate. But you're always going to have to worry about things like size, weight. So let's have an example here. You need a sighting range of 1500 and above. That will dictate what scope. You have to have a weight of 6.7 kilograms or less. So that will detect what materials you do, whether you use a mag or not. Also a silencer, great, it doesn't specify, so you could use any silencer that will fit this particular gun. I'll show you then how to look at its silencers or muzzle devices and how to pick them. Ergonomics always have to be above a certain level, and this is usually the toughest part with any gunsmith part, is getting the ergonomics up high enough. And then, of course, there's recoil, some less than 300, so that means the vertical and the horizontal. All right. So let's jump back here and I'll give you some help on, I hope, give you some help on how to complete these. So I've got my sample guns here. And let's start off with the main thing, which is you always have to look at durability of the guns. So if you buy them brand new from Trader, they'll always be 100%. You don't have to worry. But often you can get them cheaper off the flea. You'll find them in Raid. This has to be above 60, or it doesn't matter if you have the right parts or not. Gunsmith won't take it. So notice this is a brand new gun that I bought, 100 out of 100, whereas this one came out of a Raid. It's down to 89. Still good enough that Guns Mechanic would take it, but keep an eye on that, especially if you're buying off the flea, as I said. All right, so that's step one, is durability. All right, step two, size. So sometimes you'll see tasks that you have to hand in a certain size. I've seen a couple of them that don't make any sense because the full gun is at the right size to begin with. I assume that's an older task that hasn't been updated. But let's say, for example, this they gave me a task for an AK-103 that has to be no bigger than 8 squares or 8 units. Notice that this is 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So to complete the task, as is usually the last thing you do, you fold it. A lot of guns have folding stocks. And now it goes from 10 to 2, 4, 6, 8. There you go. You've met the requirements for space. Of note, sometimes you won't be able to fold the gun because of the scope that's on it. You can try a smaller scope if it doesn't really specify which scope to use. You can take the scope off, fold it, and then put the scope on. That's the other way to do it. All right, so there you go. That is the next part done, which is size. So we've done durability, we've done size, and now we're going to move on to weight. So, of course, every gun has weight to it, every part has weight to it. So, if you have to get below a certain level, you can do a few things. You can change around, obviously, the parts. One part might be lighter. Some of these grips like this that have cutouts, they're certainly lighter than other pieces. So you might want to use this instead of another grip, like these solid grips here. You can look at if it requires a mag, you can often use multiple or different mags. Pick the one that's lightest because they'll all have a weight in there. So you can look at them that way, and maybe you'll see one that's made out of aluminum instead of metal and it'll be lighter. So you can do stuff like that. That will be some minor adjustments to weight. The big one is taking off any kind of ancillary stuff that's not required. So if you have something like a laser on the gun, it doesn't say to use a laser, then take a laser off and that will reduce weight. And then the other thing, the big thing is mags. Sometimes you'll need a mag and you'll make the mistake that I often do, and you'll put a mag in with rounds in it, and that increases weight. So always remove the rounds from any magazine that's required. And if the gun has a bullet in the chamber, take the bullet in the chamber out of the gun. All right? And the mag itself, if it doesn't tell you specifically you need a mag, sometimes you still do. So you can try taking the mag out and see if that lightens it enough, and maybe it'll pass that way. All right? So now we've covered, sorry, chewing on a candy here. Now we've covered durability, we've covered space, and we've covered weight. So let's go on to sighting range. So you notice here that these guns have a sighting range, and that one that I looked at had a sighting range requirement of 1,500 yards. Well, you can look at any sight and it'll tell you what its sighting range is, so all you have to do really is pick the correct sight with the right sighting range. Keep in mind, however, is in these Gunsmith builds, everything impacts something else. So, as I said, ergo is a problem with Gunsmith tasks. So if you're going to pick between these two, pick the one that has the least impact on ergonomics. So the hammer negatively impacts your ergonomics by a smaller amount than this scope. And you might find a scope that's got even a smaller number. But keep that in mind. So for sighting distance, all you have to do is find a device that has the correct, right sighting distance, but pay attention to its effect on ergonomics. Okay? All right, so we've done durability, space, weight, sighting distance. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be the sort of second last hardest part, which is recoil. So what it talks about in recoil, it's the sum of the vertical and the sum of the horizontal. So add those two together, and those two added together must be less than whatever it specifies in the task. Okay? So if it's above those, if these two are above what you need, let's say you had to get to 200 total, well, you're well above 200. You're like 254 above. My math's not the greatest. But you would have to then reduce this by 50 some points. Okay, so what reduces recoil? Sights do not reduce recoil. Pistol grips do not reduce recoil. What does reduce recoil are your stock, your foregrip, and your muzzle device. So you need to go and select the muzzle device that your ergo will allow you to use that reduces the recoil by the greatest amount. So let's just go in here and have a quick look. Notice, for example, the RK2, it actually has the best reduction in recoil. You might be might want to use that, but note it also kills your ergonomics by 8. So you have to play around there a bit. Here's another option for a foregrip that is -2. So it doesn't reduce your recoil as much, but that may be a good -2% of the total gun's recoil, the unloaded gun's recoil. So that might be enough to get you under, and it gives you a boost to the ergonomics. So if you had to pick the two, more than likely this would be the better choice, because it It does give you a good drop in your recoil, and it doesn't screw your ergonomics. Okay, so that is foregrip. Let's go into this gun actually. So we'll go to the modding screen instead. It's a little bit easier. So then you're talking about the that was a foregrip. We go to the muzzle device, and you'll see here that different muzzle devices, if I pop this little stat window up, different muzzle devices will impact the recoil at a different level. So this gun actually comes with this muzzle device, and you see recoil 76 to 44. So I would look at some of my other, this one reduces vertical by -3 and horizontal by -9. I can look at some of the other ones, but usually the suppressors have the best impact. You just have to be careful of, you notice that I'm going to reduce my ergonomics by -20. So you have to pick a muzzle device that gives you as much reduction in recoil as possible without killing your ergonomics below what is needed for the task. But anyways, for this, I'm just going to toss that on. So we've talked about foregrip for reducing recoil. We're talked about a muzzle device for reducing recoil. And let's go over to the final item, which is, I picked the wrong one. Let's go to the final item, and that's stock. So changing the stock on your gun will reduce its recoil for sure. There is a bonus that if you have a gun that has a buffer tube, this does not have the standard buffer tube. This has the advanced buffer tube. And by taking the standard buffer tube off this gun, if I bought it brand new, and changing to the advanced, notice I get a -4% reduction in recoil and also a boost by 2 points in ergonomics. So that is one way to boost ergonomics when we get to that section, by using a better advanced buffer tube. And these are some of the ones for this gun. And then the other, oops, I'll put this back in. And then the other way to do what you want, looking to do, which is reduce recoil, is your stock. And in this case, this stock gives you a boost in ergo, great, and has a 30% drop in recoil. And then even this little pad also has an additional boost in ergonomics and boost in recoil. So you can play around with the stocks that you can put on. Basically, what you're looking for is the higher this number is, the better. And this is just a bonus. So in this case, though, if I had a stock that had 33% recoil, but negatively impact ergonomics or something like that, I might go with this lower recoil and try to fix it some other way just to get my ergo where it needs to be. Okay, so we talked about durability, we've talked about space, we've talked about weight, we've talked about sighting range, we've talked about ergonomics. The final piece of the puzzle is going to be, sorry, we talked about recoil. Final piece of the puzzle is going to be ergonomics, and that's going to be the toughest part, I find. I always find that I can get recoil down, but I often end up killing the ergonomics by doing that. So you have to be very careful about what you're going to add to your gun to boost this number, this ergonomics, to what it needs to be. The big items you get that can boost your ergonomics are basically you can see here, the pistol grip that I use has the biggest impact on ergonomics. So it actually increases ergonomics, and the bigger this number, the better. When I'm in a raid and I'm picking up pistol grips out of boxes and stuff, I usually look at them, and their ergonomics is, if it's not above 8, now this one's above 7, I still have it. But if this number isn't above 8, I sell everything, because they don't typically do that much good otherwise. So here we've got one of the best, -15. There's still better ones out there. They just might not fit on this gun. But the biggest boost to ergonomics I can get is picking the best one of these pistol grips. There's another 15 that I could do, so I could switch. The only thing it would be, you notice the weight went up. But that's how I boost my ergonomics. You saw that on this gun. I was able to boost ergonomics by a slightly better picking a stock that had a slight boost, a buffer tube that had a slight boost, and I also could get a slight boost out of the foregrip that I chose. So those are some of the ways that you can play around, pick a different stock, pick a different foregrip, pick a different muzzle device, and try to get the numbers you need. Keep in mind that your scopes have a drag on ergonomics -4. Then maybe you want to pick a better scope that doesn't have as bad a drag on it. So that is how you will boost your ergonomics. And then there's a couple of small items that will add 1 or 2 points that if you're just close enough, you can actually get a couple extra points by doing these. One of them is the charging handles. By replacing the charging handle, you notice there's no bonus on this at all. There's Raptors and other handles. If I swap out the handle, I can get a point or two. If I'm very close, a point or two to get my ergo number up. And then there's the iron sights, the one at the back and the one at the front. You can actually change these out in favor of ones that, see, this one gives you a little boost of 1%. So if that wasn't there, I would lose a point of ergonomics. There's also one here for the front. I just don't think I have it. But that is how you can, again, boost your gun. In the case of AKs, they also have, this was not on the gun when I bought it. I just threw it on there when I was playing around. But the charging handle for the AKs, +3 points. So if you're stuck on your AK, you're not within a number of points. If you have the right handle up front, you might be able to put that foregrip on, or iron sight at the front. You might be able to put one on the back for the other point, but the other option here is adding this charging handle, and notice that that's going to give me +3. So that is a means of giving yourself a few extra points of ergonomics if you're struggling. So that was these here. Notice this one has no benefit, but there are other ones that do. So if you can go to a trader and grab front and rear sights, even though you're not going to use them because you have a scope, you can get the boost of 1 or 2 points for putting a iron sight on the front and on the back. And that might be enough. There we go. Putting this on any gun that will accept it will give you an extra point of ergo. And that's how you get ergo up. So there, we've covered it. That's the important information to know about doing gunsmith tasks. Again, durability, size. Doesn't like when I do that. Scope typically is an impact negatively on ergo. Muzzle device also can be a negative, but you can sometimes get a boost positively from your foregrip. You definitely, the most important one to use is the pistol grip. You can get a huge boost to your ergo using a pistol grip. And sometimes your stock and buffer tube will also give you a slight boost. And then the bonus for ergo are the front and rear sights and a charging handle. So that's it. I hope this is of some help to you. My intent is to give you an explanation, give you some knowledge where you can potentially do some of these gunsmith tasks on your own without having to follow video or find particular points. Again, if it specifies a particular piece, you have to use it, but in a lot of cases, you're totally free to pick whatever is needed within your arsenal to complete the job. And if that helps, that's great. If it is helpful to you, I wouldn't mind if you could give me a like on the video or even subscribe to the channel. There will be slowly other videos that I make that I do things that I hope will help average players. So otherwise, take care.